Hey guys, hoping all is well with everybody. In this video we're going to be continuing the stories of Heroic Dogs by Aloud Jefferson, and we're going to be continuing part 2 of the story of Winkie, Chinka, Mickey, and Etta and Kitty. And as always, I'll be showing you any pictures that we come across, but please feel free to follow along. Saving Men. Kitty and Etta didn't stop with William Gray. They next rescued two British airmen from a hospital. In trying to find a way for them to escape, they connected with a Father Christian who had established a wide network leading to the south. There were 1,000 of the soldiers living in nearby woods. Almost every day they'd leave a body for Father Christian to bury. The women and the priest quickly fell into a routine. The priest would bring 4 men to the apartment, and the women would ferry them to the train or to another stop in the underground. Before they were stopped, they rescued at least 150 men together. During these scary months, the dogs did more than alert them of people near the door. Their attachment to them lessened the everyday grinding anxiety about being caught. The women joined the Foyer des Adultes, a welfare agency to support the French troops. The Germans used the agency to deliver packages to prisoners in the hospitals in the occupied areas. As a member, Kitty was able to get gas for the car. One reason the Germans allowed this was they had a shortage of transport. Germans were going from house to house and clearing the valuables from any place not being lived in. Trucks and trains were needed to take the spoils back to Germany. On November 26, 5 months after they had stuffed William Gray in the luggage compartment, and just after celebrating the 150th saved man, Kitty was in the south of France getting more money for bribes, fuel, and food for the men. Etta was alone with the dogs in the apartment. Margaret had left early to stand in line to buy food, something that took half her days. The bell rang. Thinking it was Father Christian with 4 more British soldiers, she opened the door. It was German police. She was ordered to pack a few things and leave with them. They left 1 man in the apartment to arrest Kitty and monitor the telephones. Etta stopped as they were leaving the apartment and said they had to tell the concierge to take care of the dogs. With this ploy, she managed to whisper to Madame Wegler what was happening and for her to warn Father Christian not to go up to the apartment. Etta was questioned for hours but denied knowing where Kitty was or anything about her activities. They brought her to a famous military prison that just 2 years before Etta and Kitty had visited as tourists. Strip-searched, photographed, and given a number, she was shoved into a stinking cell with 4 cots. It was so crowded there was no space to pace. Every day the 4 women sat on the edge of their cots, waiting the days away. Finally, on December 14th, Etta was released. Returning to the apartment, she met happily with her excited dogs. Kitty was still away, but everyone else involved with their underground activity had been arrested. Margaret had been released and she left Paris for her family home. Later, Etta met with Kitty's husband, Henry, who convinced her to leave Paris for the south. Etta was being used by the Nazis as bait to catch Kitty. So Etta and Henry devised a plan for the following day to trick her followers and reach the train station. December 22nd, the day she was planning to escape, Etta decided to take the dogs for one last walk. She put them on the leash and headed for the elevator, which was already rising. Out came the same German who had arrested her before. He said she was wanted at headquarters. Excited about going for a walk, Winkie, Chinka, and Mickey whined as she took them off the leash and closed the door behind them. Hoping for a bureaucratic snafu, Etta found at the headquarters that they had arrested Kitty and she was going to be held as witness. On March 7, 1941, there was a trial. The jury were 6 privates of the German army. They were all found guilty. Kitty and Father Christian were sentenced to death. Etta was sentenced to 3 years hard labor. Her sentence was lighter as the United States was not in the war yet. Others had longer sentences. Etta was in 3 different prisons over 17 months. Hard labor for her, as she was in her 60s, meant she was not allowed to go outside for the 2 hours each day the others were given in the first prison. Food was scarce and awful, the prisons cold. She had several heart attacks. Then, after her last heart attack, she was told she was being paroled. She could return to Paris, but would need to report to the Germans each day. She discovered they released her from prison because they wanted to exchange her for a German woman convicted of espionage in the United States. They were afraid that Etta might die if they kept her in prison any longer. Civilian casualties. So weak she couldn't walk the 2 miles to the train station, Etta made her way back to Paris. Close to home, she grew excited to see her dogs again. She hardly recognized Madame Boegler, the concierge. She had become so thin. Etta looked for her dogs, but they weren't there. Madame Boegler explained that with the food shortages in Paris, all the dogs in the city had been eaten, and many cats as well. Etta was horrified, but somewhat relieved when the concierge went on to explain that she didn't have enough food to feed the dogs, so she had to put them to sleep. She hadn't eaten the dogs, or so she said. Little Winkie, Chinka, and Mickey were gone, casualties of the war. The endings. Etta's apartment had been taken over by the Germans. First, they had taken everything out and trucked it away. Then they brought everything back so the German who'd first come to arrest her could live there. Kitty was in prison in France for some time, but was then transferred to Germany. It was assumed she died there or was executed. It was sad. Kitty had been tricked by the Gestapo into a confession which had also implicated Etta. They showed her a fake confession of Etta's, but Etta never confessed anything. Father Christian was scheduled to be killed. On the day of his execution, 2 officers appeared at the prison to take him away. Later, 2 real officers appeared to take him away and discovered they'd been tricked. British supporters of Father Christian had rescued him, and he went deep underground to continue his work. Etta returned to the United States. She wrote a book of her adventures, Paris Underground, which was made into an awful movie in 1945. She died in 1948 at the age of 70 from complications of a broken hip. And that is the end of the story of Winkie, Chinka, and Mickey, and Etta and Kitty. I hope you guys enjoyed that story, and I hope to look forward to seeing you in more videos of Heroic Dogs by Lou Jefferson. If you guys have any requests for any read-alongs, please never hesitate to message me. But I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for watching. Take good care.